A woman lost her son, her pets, and her house in one single afternoon. 10 years later, she lives in 200 square feet, and she says it's the happiest home she's ever had. A Marine came home from Iraq, ended up sleeping in his car, and today he's a manager who just bought his first house because someone handed him the keys to a home the size of a parking spot. And a family who watched their entire neighborhood burn to the ground in January 2025 just moved into a custom-built tiny house that was designed around their grief, their memories, and their future. These aren't fairy tales. These are real people in 2026, and their homes are smaller than most people's living rooms. But their stories are bigger than most mansions will ever hold. Stick around, because story number 3 on this list involves a fire, a 5-year-old, and a bathtub, and it will absolutely wreck you in the best way. Before we go further, one quick favor. If this is already hitting you the way it's hitting me, hit subscribe and tap the notification bell now, because this channel takes you inside the tiny house movement one unbelievable story at a time, and you don't want to miss what's coming next week. Okay, let's get into it. So here's the thing about tiny homes that nobody tells you in the glossy magazine spreads. Yes, they're beautiful. Yes, they're clever. Yes, that fold-out staircase with the hidden drawers is objectively very cool. But underneath almost every tiny house you've ever scrolled past on social media, there's a story. Somebody chose 400 square feet, or 200, or even less, for a reason. Sometimes it's simple: freedom, minimalism, saving money. But sometimes the reason is survival. Sometimes it's the only thing standing between a person and total collapse. Today we're not just looking at cute interiors. We're looking at the human beings behind the walls. 5 stories. 5 completely different paths that all led to the same place. A tiny front door, and a second chance behind it. Let's start with the one that started this whole movement in a very unexpected place. The ashes of a California wildfire. In November 2018, the campfire tore through Paradise, California, and became the deadliest wildfire in state history. It didn't just take houses. For a woman named Carol, it took her son, her pets, and every physical trace of the life she had built. If you've never experienced something like that, try to imagine it for just a second. Not losing a possession, but losing a person, an animal, a home, all in the same breath of smoke. In the years after the fire, Carol did what a lot of survivors in Butte County did. She started rebuilding, piece by piece, and eventually, she chose a tiny house on wheels as her new home. Her story was featured on the Tiny Home Tours YouTube channel, where she walked viewers through her small, sunlit space. And what struck people wasn't the square footage, it was her voice. Calm, grateful, somehow lighter than you'd expect from someone who had survived that much loss. She got a new pet. She built a new routine. And in a home smaller than most people's garages, she found something that a 5,000 square foot house couldn't have given her after that kind of trauma: control. A space that was entirely, completely hers again, that nothing and no one could take without her permission. Carol's story became part of something much bigger. A nonprofit called Tiny Homes for Fire Survivors launched in Oroville, California, founded by a single mother named Alyssa, who understood the same kind of loss firsthand after a fire destroyed her own home years earlier. Working almost entirely on donations and volunteer labor, that organization has built tiny homes for dozens of campfire survivors, including a father and his 8-year-old son who spent 6 months bouncing between shelters before finally getting the keys to their own 200 square foot home. The dad said something to a local news crew that stuck with a lot of people. Those keys weren't just keys to a house. They were the keys to a brand new life. That's the pattern you're going to notice again and again in this video. Tiny homes, in a lot of these stories, aren't a downsizing trend. They're a lifeline. Let's jump forward to January 2025, when the Palisades Fire ripped through Los Angeles and destroyed thousands of homes in a matter of days. Entire streets that had stood for generations were reduced to ash and chimneys. One family who lost everything in that fire didn't just need a house. They needed somewhere that felt like healing, not just shelter. That's where a custom-built tiny home called the Felicity comes in. Built specifically for this Palisades Fire family, the design wasn't a generic floor plan pulled off a shelf. Builders worked directly with the family to create something deeply personal, a layout shaped around how they actually wanted to live after losing the home where they'd made all their old memories. It's a small detail, but it says everything about where the tiny home industry has moved in 2026. Builders aren't just selling square footage anymore. In cases like this, they're essentially building trauma-informed architecture. Every cabinet, every window placement, every quiet corner is being thought through with the specific grief of the people who are going to live there. And this isn't a one-off. Across California, tiny home builders have increasingly partnered with wildfire relief organizations to fast-track housing for displaced families. Because traditional rebuilding can take years, permits, insurance disputes, contractor shortages, material costs. A tiny home, by comparison, can sometimes go from blueprint to move-in ready in a matter of months. When your alternative is living in a hotel room or a relative's spare bedroom indefinitely, that speed isn't a luxury. It's dignity, delivered on a deadline. If you're finding these stories as moving as I am, make sure you're subscribed, because story number 4 is about to completely shift the tone in the best possible way. Now let's talk about Kyle Hanssen. Kyle is a former Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps and a Iraq War veteran, and for a stretch of his life, he was also homeless and struggling with addiction. That's a combination this country doesn't talk about nearly enough. As of recent Department of Veterans Affairs estimates, more than 32,000 veterans are homeless on any given night in America. People who served, who sacrificed, who came home, and simply fell through the cracks. In 2018, Kyle found something called the Veterans Community Project, a nonprofit that builds entire villages of tiny homes, around 240 square feet each, specifically for homeless veterans. Here's the catch, and it's a beautiful one. Rent is completely free. $0. The only thing residents are asked to do is show up for themselves. Mental health counseling, job training, weekly accountability check-ins. Kyle had to commit to that structure before he even got the keys. He lived in one of those tiny homes for 18 months, and it changed the entire trajectory of his life. He's not alone. The Veterans Community Project now operates 6 villages across the country. In Kansas City, Glendale, Longmont, Sioux Falls, St. Louis, and, as of late 2025, a brand new 40-home village in Milwaukee, funded in part by the state of Wisconsin and even the Milwaukee Brewers. And the results aren't just heartwarming anecdotes, they're backed by numbers. The organization reports an 85% success rate, meaning the overwhelming majority of veterans who complete the roughly 11-month program transition into permanent, stable housing of their own. In 2025 alone, 29 veterans graduated out of their tiny homes and into permanent places to live. There's another veteran in this same program, known simply as Dave, whose story might be the one that gets you. Dave went through the program, rebuilt his life, and now works full-time for the organization that once housed him, helping other veterans the exact same way someone once helped him. He said something that I think applies to almost everyone in this video. He can connect with the residents in a way most staff members simply can't, because he's been in their exact shoes. 240 square feet turned into a career, a purpose, and a second chance at being the person he was before the war took pieces of him. That's the thing about a tiny home when it's done right. It was never really about the tiny part. It was about giving someone a door they could lock, a light they could turn on, and a reason to believe tomorrow could look different than today. Let's shift gears for a second, because not every tiny home story starts with tragedy. Some of them start with pure craftsmanship and love for the work itself. In Lakeway, Texas, back in 2017, a professional house framer built something called the Storybook Cedar entirely by hand. No mass production, no factory assembly line, just one skilled builder pouring years of experience into a warm, character-filled cottage on wheels. That little house has lived 2 lives since then. For a while, it served as a private retreat, a quiet place to disappear from the noise of everyday life. Later, it became a beloved short-term rental, welcoming guest after guest who wanted to experience, even just for a weekend, what it feels like to live inside something that was clearly made with care instead of mass-produced on an assembly line. If you've ever stayed in a space and just felt it was different, warmer, more thoughtful, somehow more alive than a hotel room, that's usually because a real person built it with their actual hands, thinking about your actual comfort the whole time. This story matters because it's a reminder that not everything in the tiny house world has to be about survival or crisis. Sometimes it's simply about craftsmanship refusing to disappear in a world of cookie-cutter construction. Sometimes a tiny home is just proof that skilled, patient, handmade work still exists, and still means something to the people who get to experience it, even years later. Here's where I want to zoom out, because as wild as these individual stories are, the bigger picture might be even more surprising. As of 2026, the tiny home movement in the United States has quietly become a genuine, organized answer to some of the country's toughest problems. Not just a lifestyle trend for minimalists with a taste for aesthetic Pinterest boards. Builders across the country, from Pennsylvania craftsmen using traditional hand-cut timber framing techniques, to Australian-style builders bringing full-size kitchens and family-friendly layouts to the compact footprint, to companies offering tiny homes for well under $200,000 with real financing options. The entire industry has matured. What used to be a niche experiment is now a legitimate housing category, with nonprofits, veterans organizations, wildfire relief groups, high school construction classes, and private builders all pulling in the same direction. Do the math with me for a second, because the scale of what's possible is genuinely staggering. If every state in the country built just 10 tiny home villages, with 50 veterans housed in each one, that's 25,000 veterans given a shot at stable housing. Even accounting for realistic success rates, that's tens of thousands of people who serve this country finally getting somewhere safe to sleep. That's not a hypothetical from a press release. That's simple arithmetic based on programs that already exist and already work. Right now, in cities you've probably driven through without ever knowing a tiny home village was a few blocks away. And it's not just veterans. It's wildfire survivors in California rebuilding lives from ash. It's high school students in Illinois learning construction skills by literally building a piece of a veterans village that gets shipped across state lines. It's a mother in Oroville who never knew the difference between a drill and an impact driver, now running a full-scale nonprofit construction operation with a waiting list of over 300 families. Every single one of these people looked at a housing crisis, a personal tragedy, or an underserved community, and decided that 4 walls smaller than a typical bedroom could still be big enough to change a life. I think what gets me the most, going through story after story to make this video, is how often the phrase, "the keys to our brand new life," comes up. Not the keys to a house, the keys to a life. There's something almost poetic about that the smallest homes in the country are the ones generating some of the biggest emotional transformations. You'd think bigger spaces would create bigger relief, bigger joy, bigger stability. But over and over, it's the opposite. It's like these people needed somewhere small enough to actually feel manageable again, after everything around them had felt completely out of control. Now, in the interest of being straight with you, because that matters to me on this channel, this movement isn't perfect, and I'm not going to pretend it is just to make a tidy video. Some tiny home villages built for wildfire survivors, like the one planned in Lahaina after the devastating Maui fires, have faced serious delays. An 88-unit village was planned there, and roughly a year later, only a small fraction of those units were actually occupied, tangled up in permitting, funding gaps, and the sheer complexity of disaster recovery. Zoning laws in a lot of cities still aren't built for tiny homes, which means proposals, even good ones, even ones backed by veterans and city commissioners, can sit in limbo for months waiting on approval. A proposed recovery-focused veterans village in Augusta, Georgia was still fighting through zoning changes and nonprofit approval as of the middle of this year. Progress in this space is real, but it's slow, it's bureaucratic, and it depends heavily on donations, volunteers, and local governments actually saying yes. So no, tiny homes are not a magic fix for homelessness, wildfire recovery, or veteran housing on their own. But they are, again and again, proving to be one of the fastest, most human-centered tools available, while the bigger systems slowly catch up. And for the individual people inside these stories, Carol, Kyle, that family from the Palisades Fire, the father and son for Paradise, the tiny home wasn't a policy statistic. It was the actual, physical difference between rebuilding and staying stuck. Before we close things out, I want to run through a quick fire round, because not every incredible tiny home story is about disaster and recovery. Some of them are just about brilliant design solving very human problems, and I think you'll want to see these too. First, in Australia, a builder called Unplugged Tiny Homes released something called the Kookaburra 2.0 earlier this year, built specifically with young families in mind. What makes it worth mentioning isn't just that it looks incredible, it's the thinking behind it. A full L-shaped kitchen positioned right by the entrance, a dedicated tower for a full-size fridge, a proper pantry, and a breakfast nook with a real view. It's a direct response to a very real complaint a lot of tiny home families have, that compact kitchens usually mean compromised cooking. This one refuses to compromise. Second, in France, a young couple built a tiny home specifically shaped around their new baby, complete with its own dedicated nursery, an indoor hammock for the child, and decor personalized down to the smallest detail. It's a small reminder that tiny living isn't just for singles or retirees chasing minimalism. Families with infants are doing this too, on purpose, by choice. Third, back in the United States, a Pennsylvania builder has started using genuine traditional timber framing on tiny homes. Hand-cut mortise and tenon joinery, the exact same woodworking techniques used in barns and colonial homes centuries ago, to scale down to 200 or 300 square feet. In an industry that's mostly about speed and modern materials, that's someone deliberately choosing the slow, hard way, because the craftsmanship itself is the whole point. And fourth, there's a growing wave of full-time, two-bedroom tiny homes specifically engineered for families who don't want compact living to mean cramped living. Models built wide enough to tow legally on public roads, but laid out with genuinely spacious bathrooms, 2 separate sleeping areas, and enough separation that parents and kids aren't living directly on top of each other. That single design shift, giving a family actual private zones instead of one shared open box, has become one of the biggest quality of life upgrades in the entire tiny home industry this year. None of these stories involve losing a home to fire or coming home for more. They're proof that the tiny home movement isn't only a rescue mission. It's also just really good design, chosen freely by people who could live anywhere and decided this was actually the better way to live. So here's what I want you to sit with as we wrap up. Every single person in this video started in a moment most of us pray we never have to live through: a wildfire, a war, homelessness, total loss. And every single one of them ended up somewhere unexpected, standing in front of a small wooden door, holding a set of keys, about to start over. Not in a mansion, not in anything Instagram would call aspirational in the traditional sense. In 200 square feet, sometimes less. Maybe that's the actual lesson buried in all of this. It was never really about the size of the house. It was about somebody, somewhere, deciding that a person's story wasn't over just because their house was gone. That a family deserved a fresh start shaped around their own memories instead of a stranger's floor plan. That a veteran who served this country deserved a door of his own to walk through with 0 rent and 0 judgment. That craftsmanship, patience, and care still matter, even in a world that mostly rewards speed and scale. If this video moved you even half as much as researching it moved me, I need you to do 3 quick things before you go. First, subscribe and turn on notifications, because I'm covering more tiny home stories every single week, and honestly, some coming up are even more unbelievable than what you just watched. Second, drop a comment right now. Tell me honestly which story hit you hardest. Was it Carol and the campfire? Kyle and the Marines? The Palisades family? I read every single comment, and I want to know. And third, if you know somebody who's going through a hard season right now, somebody who needs a reminder that rebuilding is possible even when everything feels like it's been reduced to ash, send them this video. You genuinely never know whose life it might touch. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. These stories deserve to be told. These people deserve to be seen, and I'll see you in the next one.